Series started yesterday.
In a world of social media and information at our fingertips, we're bombarded with health advice 24/7. And cutting through the noise can be tough.
I just thought, what have I done?
From miracle medicines that do more harm than good, to rip-off remedies that waste your money, we'll help you sift the right advice from the downright dangerous.
It's just, okay, here, you should try this, you should try that, or you should stop doing this and start doing that.
We'll shine a light on medical malpractice and criminal behaviour.
Non-cancerous. I didn't have cancer.
From scammers preying on the most vulnerable, to pretend practitioners.
I literally look like Frankenstein's monster.
We'll help you take your health in your own hands.
This is Con or Cure. Hello and welcome to another episode of Con or Cure with me, Dr. Xand.
And me, Ashley John Baptiste. We're here to help you recognize the warning signs if you're being duped, defrauded, or double-crossed when it comes to your health.
And we're also investigating some of your shocking health stories, from bad practice to criminal behavior.
Coming up in today's program, we find out how easy it can be to fake a DNA test.
I think it's obvious the devastating impact that these tests could potentially have.
The dark side of targeted adverts.
You actually feel so stupid when you've been conned.
And the 3-second rule. Does it actually work?
Do you live by the 3-second rule?
100%. You've got some fake germs. We're going to put the items and the food on the table for 3 seconds.
You ready?
Right.
1. Oh, no, hang on. 3 to go. DNA is a molecule that has all the instructions a living organism needs to grow, reproduce, and function. So everyone's DNA is completely unique. Even identical twins, like me and my brother, have small differences. So you would think that DNA couldn't be used to con somebody. But take a look at this.
Most of us take official-looking medical documentation at face value. But software engineer Michael Brown almost lost custody of his baby daughter as a result.
It's very difficult to know that I'd been put through that on purpose. Of course, acutely aware that other people potentially are about to suffer the same, and you know, I'd like to do anything I can to prevent that from happening.
Michael's ex-partner had been pregnant with their child when their relationship ended.
Our relationship had only been for about a year and a half, and a little bit up and down. Just didn't work out.
After his baby daughter was born, custody was managed through the family court, which gave Michael regular contact with his new child. A month later, however, he received a devastating email from his ex.
It was an email forwarded by her that she'd received from a company called Hunt's Genetics. The report had the details that another man was the father of my daughter to 99.9999% probability. Obviously, that was quite shocking. It was clear that I was not going to be able to see my daughter anymore, and that was the goal of the report.
But despite the very credible paperwork, Michael had his suspicions.
Her emotions were all over the place. I didn't know whether to believe it, not believe it. The report looked entirely genuine, yet somehow made no sense, because if there was any doubts about my paternity, they perhaps would have been mentioned or brought up in previous proceedings. After more thought about it, the less I believed the report and thought that it had simply been fabricated.
Having not been involved or informed about the test at all, Michael went back to the family court.
The judge understood that this was not a court-approved DNA test, and that a court-approved DNA test should be performed.
Michael had an agonizing month-long wait for the results.
During that time, well, it just played on my mind nearly 24/7. Obviously, the situation seemed so extreme and alien to me in that, of course, there was some small doubt. So I finally received the results. nervously opened them, and sure enough, I am the father of my daughter. That gave us quite a relief, and but also with the confusion of finding it difficult to believe that somebody had come to the lengths of fabricating a DNA report.
Michael has other children from a different relationship. With his paternity confirmed, Michael's daughter would once again be able to spend time with her step-siblings as part of the family. The matter of the false DNA test was referred to the police. They and Michael suspected the samples had been tampered with, but the truth would prove to be much more straightforward.
When I looked at Xand Genetics' website of their own, I looked to see how you would go about ordering a DNA test from them. There was no actual link to be able to order one, so this started to raise my suspicions much further. I did a Google search for fake DNA test reports, and sadly, more than one result came up. One result was for a website called fakednatest.com. It was very simple. You pay £45, you fill in a form with the name of the two people that you want to be part of the DNA test, and you tell them what you want the result to be. They also explain that the report you will receive will come from a real-looking DNA company. Hit go, job done.
Michael also noticed similarities between the fakednatest.com website and that of Xand Genetics.
The website template used to build both websites was highly likely to be the same one. The colour palette used, the fonts, the layout, all suggested that they were done by the same people. So in my mind, fakednatest.com was the one used to generate the report that I'd received from Xand Genetics. That was quite a shocking revelation, because the first time I realised that you can buy an entirely fabricated, genuine-looking DNA report online.
Michael's ex-partner received a 12-month prison sentence for perverting the courts of justice. FakeDNAtest.com, however, is still trading today.
It's very sad that, it's still there to be used. Words can't quite explain the impact of this. The fake report comes along, suggests I'm not the father, go through turmoil to arrive back at the same place, all for naught. It's so shockingly easy to obtain these entirely fabricated DNA reports. I think it's obvious the devastating impact that these tests could potentially have. A child's going to lose their father. So my advice to anybody receiving a DNA test result is simply this. If you haven't been fully involved in the process of administering that test, seeing the samples taken, seeing them posted to the company, and not having left your site, then you simply cannot trust it. It's meaningless.
Time for some investigating into just how easy this is. So I am on a site where I can order a fake paternity test, and I cannot believe that it's a simple form and it's only 45 quid. So I'll fill it in and let's see where it leads us. My name, Ashley John Baptiste. All right, so what's my mum's name? I think I'll just put down any name, to be honest. Email address. Okay, so it wants to know the full name of my alleged father. I think that is going to be a Xand Van Tulleken, if you don't mind. Then it just asks me for my bank details. Quickly fill that in. All done. Now all I have to do is wait 1 hour to get the results. It is unbelievably shocking how easy it is to do a DNA test online. Blew my mind.
And very life-changing and distressing, potentially.
Absolutely.
I mean, fake DNA do say on their website that this is meant to be used as a prank, but it is in the small print, and you know, this could still be very distressing for people. I think it's not obviously a good prank.
Check this out. I did a test and I have the results, and it turns out you are not just a doctor. You are also, Dr. Xand, you're my father. Who would have thought? Look at that.
I mean, this is amazing. Alleged father, Xand van Tulleken. Child, Ashley John Baptiste. I mean, this is very convincing.
It is.
I mean, if you didn't know and you were in a situation of doubt, you'd kind of go, well, maybe this is all true.
It looks legitimate, and that is what's so concerning.
Yeah. So if you haven't given your DNA for a DNA test, if you haven't given a cheek swab or a hair sample or something like that, then I would not trust any DNA result you're given. If you're given something like this and you don't remember giving a sample, then I would want the test repeated to get you some certainty. But I have to say, if you were my son, I'd be very proud.
Stop. You're too young for that, Dr. Xand.
Well, that is true.
Throughout this series, we're busting some common medical myths. The folk tales, notions, and fallacies we've all been led to believe. Are they true or truly nonsense? Today, we're testing the truth behind the 3-second rule.
The 3-second rule, confusingly also maybe the 5-second rule.
Yeah.
If you drop a piece of food, the idea is if you pick it up quickly within 3 or 5 seconds, it won't be contaminated, it'll be safe to eat. Do you live by the 3-second rule?
100%.
Really?
I live by this rule. If I cook, I drop something, 3 seconds, it's up. I got a baby, if a dummy drops on the floor, 3 seconds, it's up. This is something I live by religiously.
See, I always think of it when I drop food, but for me, it's a complicated, it's like the matrix calculation. It's like, how expensive was the food? Is there any more? How long did it take me to prepare? How hungry? How lazy am I? It's all that stuff. Is the floor clean? I never get, in the end, it's just an instinctive, like, cram it in my mouth.
Yes. But we could put this to the test now.
Well, this is the plan. So, you know, we are following a long tradition of investigating and studying the 3 and 5-second rules. So this is something that actually a scientist won an Ig Nobel Prize for. So a kind of an award for slightly odd but good science. So it has been studied.
Okay.
There's no definitive conclusion. So we're going to contribute to the canon of scientific knowledge.
So this is a moment.
Here we go.
So we've got a banana, we've got some toast, dummies, and we've got some fake germs on the table. What we're going to do, we're going to put the items and the food on the table for 3 seconds, and then we can test the germs with this fluorescent lighting on the food and dummies to see the transfer.
All right, can I have a look at the germs? Let's just see. So this is good, actually. The table looks clean, and then with the torch, it is covered in these fake bugs. All right, what do you want to start with?
Let's do the banana.
All right.
All right. I'm going to put it on and then count to 3.
Here we go.
Here we go.
1, 2, 3. Get it. Okay, here we go. Right. Okay, so I would say, to me, infection doctor, I would say that is a heavily contaminated banana.
Really?
I think that's quite disgusting. Do you want to eat it now?
Do you know what? If you've got a floor with your shoes and you walk around and you've got all sorts of germs, say you've got a dog or something, yeah, that is actually...
I mean, it's covered in bugs.
It is.
All right.
I've just got it so ingrained in my head. There is something in me that believes that no germs will transfer, but clearly some do.
Called a rule. It's a rule, so you have to believe it because it's a rule.
All right, how about the toast? Because if my butter side falls on the floor, listen, I'm taking that toast and I'm eating it. So let's see.
All right, here we go. You ready?
Right.
1.
3.
Oh, no, hang on. 3 to go. Get it. It's done. It's ready.
Oh, but there's germs on it now. I'm so disappointed with this.
Why are you in any way surprised?
I mean, I must just be a dirtbag now because I do this so often.
Well, here's the thing, is that what science really struggles to do is say, how likely is that to make you sick?
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing, everything is covered in bugs and germs, right? So you drop it on the floor, but you live in your house, things are on the floor, they get everywhere anyway. Is this a big deal? And that's harder to ask. So I actually don't think that you're being a disgusting dirtbag eating your food off the floor. Although when I put it like that, it does sound a bit judgy. Maybe I do a bit.
But this one's important.
Here we go. Okay.
If my baby drops her dummy on the floor, I will take the 3-second rule and even count to 5.
Oh, so will I. I mean, that was, especially like when my son was little, if he was distressed, he'd just shove it back in his mouth.
Yeah. And now I'm questioning this decision.
I don't think this is going to be
feeling
third
like a
time
bad
lucky.
dad.
Come on,
All right,
come
let's
on.
do this. 3,
2, 1.
Oh, God. I mean, that's
come on.
germy.
Clear evidence of contamination. What do you think about all this? What's your conclusion?
My thing is the germs are clearly transferring. I suppose the question is, should we be worried by that? Are the germs significant enough to affect your immune system?
What do you think I'm going to say?
Hopefully not.
Look, I trained as an infection doctor and public health doctor. If you say, Dr. Xand, should I eat food off the floor? I'm going to say no. Obviously, I'm going to say no. The reality is I do it, everyone does it. Is anyone going to listen to me? Probably not. But I still think it was a very elegant experiment.
Well, listen, lesson learned for me, so thank you.
Many of the scams and cons we cover on this series are deliberate and malicious, but our next story involves a deadly substance that's killed tens of thousands of people, but was once thought to be a safe building material: asbestos.
A diagnosis of a serious illness is difficult to deal with at any time in your life. But to discover at a young age that you've been affected by an environmental hazard banned in 1999 is even more of a shock.
My exposure, I remember it like it was yesterday. People don't really understand how bad it can be. They just think it's never going to affect them.
The fact that I've been diagnosed with a cancer that's completely preventable is appalling. We all know that this is dangerous. We know it kills people. Why don't we get rid of it?
When 36-year-old roofer Liam fell from a ladder, it led indirectly to a nightmare diagnosis that would change his life.
Snapped my hip, broke a few ribs, punctured both my lungs, dislocated and shattered my left elbow and broke vertebrae in my neck. So it was a painful experience.
But despite making a good recovery from his ordeal, a scan of his neck and chest later revealed something even more significant, unrelated to his accident.
They found tiny specks on my lung. They did a biopsy, and a couple of weeks later they come back and said it was positive for mesothelioma.
Mesothelioma is a form of cancer, which is almost always caused by breathing in asbestos fibers, which cause increasing damage to the lungs over time.
I just went numb, didn't really know what to do. My daughter at the time was only 1. The first thing you think about is, am I going to see her grow up? Is it my last Christmas, my last birthday? Those sort of things run through your mind.
Trying to understand where he'd been exposed, Liam remembered working on a particular site 17 years before.
We was on a new build. We had to tie into an old factory. So we was taking these panels off by any means necessary. Lump hammers, saws, drill, you name it. And we all put them to a side, and we was going down for lunch, and my site manager at the time just said, before you go downstairs, before you have your dinner, just wash your hands, because they was asbestos. I was young, I was 17, 18, something like that. I just, okay, I'll wash my hands, and that was it really, until the day I was diagnosed, and I just knew exactly where it was.
Mesothelioma is incurable, and if left untreated, it can spread throughout the body.
It takes many years for it to wreak its havoc. Survival is variable, but generally speaking, the vast majority of people will die within a year of diagnosis, so it's a pitiful situation.
But Liam wasn't giving up hope and began treatment.
It was 4 rounds of chemotherapy, once every 3 weeks, tablets, kept on going for about 6 months, I believe.
We hope to contain the disease for as long as possible, keep the person as well as we can for as long as we can. But currently, this avoidable cancer is not curable.
If I didn't have that accident, I would have never have been diagnosed today. I feel blessed when I wake up in the morning. I just plan for the future. Tiny specks in my lungs have never grown. they've stayed stable, so may that continue.
The last century saw lots of legislation and lots of guidelines to protect workers. But unfortunately, our incidence of asbestos-related disease continued and still does continue to grow. It's deadly. It causes cancer. So it should be removed by specialists, people who are trained and registered to remove it.
Liam's exposure meant that he could claim damages against the company that had failed to protect him all those years ago.
It took about 2 years, and we got what we thought was right. As much as I was happy that we'd won, and that I knew that my family are financially secure now for the rest of their life, it's barely a silver lining, really.
Liam considers himself fortunate to have discovered the disease before it was too late to manage. It can take as long as 20 years to develop symptoms, so for many, the damage goes undetected.
It's that not knowing. You're diagnosed with mesothelioma, you've got to have a scan, and you generally got to have symptoms as well. And by then it can be too late. Some of it can be prevented so easy.
Liam is still able to work as a building inspector while also campaigning for awareness of asbestos in the construction industry.
But he feels especially strongly about those who have to work in buildings with asbestos in them.
So angry that kids have to go to school in old buildings knowing that they are potentially exposed to asbestos, as well as people who go to work in the NHS.
Although asbestos needs to be disturbed before it presents a real danger, if you're unaware of it in your environment, like 40-year-old Helen, you can still contract mesothelioma. Her story begins at the respiratory department of her local hospital.
I love my job. I've worked in hospitals for 23 years. We would see patients with all different types of respiratory conditions.
Her work was particularly challenging through the pandemic, and she soon caught COVID herself.
I tested positive for 7 weeks. And so after COVID and when I'd recovered and everything, I was left with a central chest pain, which was really strange. Of all the things I thought it might be, because I was going through them in my head, mesothelioma was one of the things that I just completely disregarded.
Unlike Liam, Helen is unsure what caused the mesothelioma, but testing showed she did have the disease.
The diagnosis itself and all the literature around it was grim.
Her diagnosis turned her world upside down.
Me and my husband were in total shock. We just couldn't believe that I had a cancer that had been caused by asbestos, which is something that's completely preventable. We wrote a will. I planned my funeral. The future seemed pretty grim.
Thankfully, Helen had a relatively slow-growing form of the cancer, and her young age gave her a good chance of responding to treatment.
I had 6 cycles of chemotherapy, which finished in January 2022. Following chemo, I had a really positive scan in March 2022, which showed some slight shrinkage. And then in June, for my next maintenance scan, I had growth. And then we just said, right, what's our options now?
Helen is now undergoing experimental treatments.
We know that we cannot cure mesothelioma. However, I think the UK is a world leader in developing clinical trials to treat mesothelioma, and it offers hope for patients. It gives them the opportunity to access novel treatments and newer agents that can potentially keep them well for longer. And we have a great system, I think, in the UK of helping patients navigate the NHS to get the very best. Helen, for instance, is from the north of England and has accessed a trial in the Midlands.
Helen has managed to stay positive despite what she's going through, and she's channeling this into raising awareness of the condition.
So I started writing a blog, and it's been so cathartic for me. I've had such good feedback from it. It's also good for people who are just being diagnosed, because that first month of diagnosis is a whirlwind. You're thinking so many things. And so if somebody reads that and thinks, oh, well, I felt like that, well, that's my job done, that's great.
Unlike Liam, Helen cannot claim compensation from an employer due to the lack of evidence as to where she was exposed to asbestos. She can, however, claim from the government's own compensation scheme, although the upper limits of the amount she can hope for are far less. As more diagnoses like Helen's are made, that cost to the government continues to rise.
In 2020, the Health and Safety Executive published a paper that showed that there'd been £3.2 billion paid out in compensation. Now, that money for me would be better spent getting rid of the asbestos that exists currently.
A year after the publishing of the Health and Safety Executive paper, the Working Pensions Committee presented the government with a 40-year plan to completely remove asbestos from public buildings.
Unfortunately, they've rejected that plan. Why they've done that, who knows?
And worse still, the cost in lives continues to grow.
I'm a young woman. I've got a young family. The fact that I've been diagnosed with a cancer that's completely preventable is appalling. The way to say how I feel about my diagnosis now would be to say I'm at peace with it. I don't have many symptoms, mainly pain on that side. I'm lucky to be alive. Only when it's questioned, do you really value your health and your life and those around you? I don't know how much time I've got. I choose to spend my days with the best people, and I love every day.
At the time we made that film, Helen was in a clinical trial. Since then, her cancer has started to grow again, so she's left the clinical trial, but she's been traveling with her family and said that she is making the most of every day. So we wish them both the best of luck. Well, I'm joined now by Liz Darlison. She is a consultant nurse at University Hospitals of Leicester, and she's also the chief executive and founder of Mesothelioma UK. Liz, it's lovely to have you on the show. First of all, I actually found the numbers of people diagnosed with mesothelioma each year quite shocking.
I'm glad that you're shocked. You know, I liken it to Titanic going down every year in our country, and yet people are not listening, they're not seeing this public health disaster for what it is. We have the highest incidence of asbestos diseases in the world in the UK, and asbestos continues to be present, and there's no safe level of exposure in many of our buildings. 95% of our schools, 80-odd% of our hospitals. You know, it is, as I said, a public health disaster, and one that we really could work together to do something about for future generations.
2,700 people a year diagnosed with a cancer that is really, it's impossible to cure and very difficult to treat. So talk to me about asbestos, first of all, because asbestos is directly linked to mesothelioma, and it's really now the main cause of mesothelioma. Is that right?
Well, it's really the only known cause. And I think if you look at the statistics, there is a direct correlation between our incidence of mesothelioma in the UK and our imports of asbestos into the country. And so for many years, it was people that were directly involved in the asbestos industry in some way, shape or form. But increasingly now what we're seeing is people like Helen. Helen has been to school, she's been to university and trained as a nurse, and then she's worked in a hospital. They are all public buildings. And sadly, as I've said, our public buildings are riddled with asbestos. There is no safe level of exposure.
So I think lots of people listening to this will be concerned at the level of exposure to asbestos that we all have. It is actually quite safe if you encounter it, provided it's not disturbed. How can people spot it? And what should you do if you think you have asbestos in your home, in the place you work?
I think typically in our homes, you know, if we think about in our airing cupboards or fascias and soffit, Artex ceilings, sometimes floor tiles, it is hides in so many places that you would never imagine that it is present.
The most important thing, if you're getting rid of asbestos or if you're doing any work on a building that contains asbestos, is to have that done properly by professionals who are trained to remove of it and dispose of it safely.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, the Health and Safety Executive
have an amazing website, lots of advice on the HSE website. So we do have the means to manage asbestos safely.
Well, Liz, you're doing an amazing job. It's a public health problem in that we're all at risk, we're all vulnerable to an exposure, and there's a lot of it around, as you say, but you're also involved in clinical trials trying to treat this cancer and get it to a point where it may well be curable. So very good luck to you and everyone at Mesothelioma UK. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The Health and Safety Executive said to us, the current regulatory system is effective at reducing exposure risk and will achieve full asbestos removal in a safe and staged way. A rush to remove asbestos could create a greater risk.
Still to come, why to be careful when you spot something that's just perfect for you online.
Gradually dawns on you, oh, have I been conned?
Across this series, as well as exposing health cons and scams, we're also looking into really surprising health remedies. They may sound like a con, but believe it or not, they will cure you. And today it's a medical practice that sounds, quite frankly, revolting. Maggots.
I'm joined by podiatrist Martin Arisol, who specialises in diabetic wound care. Martin, this blows my mind because you are using a very interesting medical tool, aren't you?
We are actually. We actually use maggots, also known as larval therapy or biosurgery.
Now, tell me, are there maggots in the bags?
Yes, there are. So these are larvae or maggots, as we call them. But in this bag, these are sterile maggots that are grown in a sterile environment.
Okay.
Don't worry, Ashley, they can't escape.
Why are they in the bags and how does it actually work?
In the NHS, we use these larvae or maggots to treat gangrene or infection, non-healing chronic ulcers or wounds. These larvae here, a certain type of fly larvae, are able to ingest and destroy unhealthy tissue and bacteria from non-healing wounds.
Yeah.
And they will leave the healthy tissue alone.
Yeah.
They also secrete certain enzymes that help break down bacteria and other substances that can actually improve wound healing in the whole process of this application. Patients don't like to think that maggots are going to escape from their dressing.
Yes.
Yeah. So we use the bags because they can be placed safely on a wound. Patients can sometimes feel a little bit of movement.
Okay.
They're quite gentle on the actual wound.
Does it just gross some of the patients out, though? The thought of just feeling the maggots on your wound?
Absolutely. People do get freaked out at the beginning, and then when they see what they can do as a result of cleaning a wound, that sort of like evaporates, I think. They can see the benefits of having this therapy on their wound.
Now, tell me why the use of maggots have become so popular again in medicine.
Larvae therapy or maggot therapy is prescribed on the NHS now since 2004. With the rise of antibiotic resistance that we have in wounds, because we have bacteria that grow in wounds, but they're becoming more resistant to the type of antibiotics we use on a regular basis. Larvae therapy has become a more effective tool at helping reducing what we call like the bioburden of wound infections. So breaking those infections down and that bacteria down this is an effective tool of applying on the wound.
And what about the cost?
So they're very cost effective. So each bag is roughly about £250, depending on the size of the bag. But if we're able to use larvae on a wound to break down a wound or clean a wound, then it can save a patient going to theatre, which is a massive cost to the NHS.
That's really significant, isn't it? Especially when you think about costs and pressures on the NHS at the moment. But to be clear, these aren't replacing antibiotics, are they?
No, they're definitely not replacing antibiotics. They're just helping us do a job of cleaning a wound effectively and speeding up the healing process of wound ulcers, chronic wound ulcers.
I would never have imagined, Martin, that maggots could be so useful in this sort of treatment. Sounds like a con, but it's actually a cure. Incredible.
To be viral has very different meaning in the medical and the social media worlds, but does millions of views really translate into something being good for us? Throughout this series, we're going to be looking at online health trends and working out if they're a con, a cure, or something in between.
All right, Xand, so we got this trend on social. It's the lion's diet. Steak, salt, water only for up to 30 days. This sounds alarming to me, but what's the deal? Con or cure?
Okay, so this is a really interesting one. It's quite complex. Now, the claim is if you're eating steak, salt and water for 30 days, you're removing all sorts of other potentially toxic components of your diet, things that might inflame or irritate your body. You're sort of stripping it down to a very limited source of fat and protein. Now, it is true that you can live a long life on really just eating meat. I mean, meat is quite a complete food. It's not what I would recommend, but this is not a fundamentally dangerous thing to do. But I should say I have a big bias against most, I would say really all diets. Diet culture in general promotes this idea that if you just switch some ingredients out, you can kind of easily and quickly lose some weight. And in the long term, really none of them work. None of them are sustainable.
But it is so popular right now on social media.
So it's very popular because if you eat steak, the first thing that you'll get is a big change in the numbers that you're interested in, which is your weight. So it's a very low carbohydrate diet. And so your body will use up the sugar supplies that you use to store energy in your muscles and in your liver. And that means you'll lose fluid. That sugar holds fluid in your body. And so very rapidly on a high protein, very low carbohydrate diet, you'll lose sugar and you'll lose weight. And you'll see that benefit on the scales and think this is great.
But also with the steak, it's also worth mentioning, it's really pricey. And this diet is appealing to a lot of young people. High cost and very low sort of health benefits from what you're saying.
I think that one of the reasons why this is a popular diet, it has a kind of masculine, manly, animalistic brandings, like the idea even of a lion, you know, it's always a male lion that you see in the pictures. Also, steak is a treaty food. It's a thing which people associate with being delicious. So you think, well, this is great. I can eat all the steak I want. Very expensive. You'll end up constipated. Your breath won't be great. It's not good for you to avoid lots of fruit and veg. They are doing you good. We know that a diet that is mostly made up of plants, fresh fruit and vegetables, small amounts of high quality protein, that is what's healthy. For people who've tried it, it's really working for them, I guess I can't ignore their personal experience. But I would never advise anyone to do any of these short-term diet fixes, whatever problem they're trying to solve.
And this isn't the only one, is it? The lion's diet. There are others. There have been others before too.
You know, you've got a cabbage here, the cabbage soup diet famously, and there are all kinds of other ones as well. And all of them are short-term fixes that I think prey on people's real vulnerability about their desperate need to lose weight. The truth is, in this country, it is very hard to eat healthily. It's expensive and people are time poor. And that is the problem. If you're struggling with obesity, it is the environment you live in. It's not you, it's the food around you. No one should feel guilty about that, but I don't think that the lion diet is the solution. Personally, I'd say it's a con.
One of the worst things we've uncovered across this series is how scammers will exploit you when you are at your most vulnerable. When Luke Handy's hip mobility made walking a struggle, an ad for an affordable mobility scooter seemed like a straightforward solution.
Good technology can sometimes help us deal with the effects of poor health and age, but many devices can be expensive. 72-year-old Lou Candy found out the hard way to be wary of online offers offering cheap solutions.
You actually feel so stupid when you've been conned, and you just lose confidence in making the right decisions.
Lou has enjoyed a long and successful career showing and training dogs.
I've represented Team GB, brought back a gold medal and a bronze medal, and I did crufts probably every year for about 25 years.
But in recent years, the onset of chronic fatigue syndrome has made activity difficult for Lou.
I'm not running around the jumps because I can't anymore, but I still have to walk or hobble. So I was looking for a way that I could do more of what I wanted to do.
Lou had seen a friend with a mobility scooter and was impressed with the freedom it had given her.
You could still get round the show with the mobility scooter. The thought occurred to me, maybe this was the way forward for me as well.
While it was on her mind, a mobility scooter wasn't something Lou was actively pursuing until she was browsing her social media feed.
I was on Facebook and the ads that scroll through came up with the mobility scooter. It was a really nice, very professional advertisement. Quite young people on it, easy to fold up. So it would be something I could take with me to shows. I thought 108.66. Oh, yeah, that looks affordable.
Lou sent off her £108, feeling she'd snagged a bit of a bargain, not quite realising then that mobility scooters usually cost thousands. While the order was initially acknowledged, the scooter did not arrive. Lou chased the company with a slew of emails. All were ignored.
And then it gradually dawns on you, oh, have I been conned? I tried to find the ad online, couldn't find it, but then I was finding the same advertisement, but with a different company name. I then tried to contact that company, but couldn't get through to them either.
After about 6 weeks, Lou contacted her bank.
I had used my debit card at Barclays to make the purchase. Barclays very, very kindly refunded me the whole amount. I was so relieved. Okay, are we ready? In hindsight, I'll still shop online, but will avoid like the plague, the pop-up advertisement. If I'd researched them before, maybe I would have got suspicious at the price of it.
And for Lou, some of the blame lies with the technology companies for unwittingly providing a platform for those scam ads.
When I told them what had happened, the advertisement was still appearing with the different company names. Platforms should be responsible. Because they're well-known companies, you feel that anything you see that's popped up on their website should be something that you can trust.
So good Lou got her money back. So just like what happened to her, scammers fine-tune their marketing to make sure it's relevant to you, so you're more likely to see adverts for products that you want. Scammers will use all sorts of tricks with the advertising. Some key tips here are: avoid anything with errors. If an advert has spelling or grammar mistakes, don't click on it. You can preview the true URL to see where a link will take you to without clicking it by hovering over it with your mouse. Avoid those that look dodgy. A long jumble of numbers or letters is a clear giveaway. And to find out who posted it, always look into whether the advertising company seems legitimate. Does it have a business address or real phone number beyond a generic email? And stay alert. Scammers will try anything to draw you in. If you've got any questions or stories you'd like to share with us at Con or Cure, you can email us at hello@conorcure.tv.
That's it for us today, but join us next time when once again we'll be exposing cons, celebrating cures, and exploring everything in between.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
From the creator of Peaky Blinders, Olivia Colman, in our new Classic with a Twist, press red now for Great Expectations on iPlayer. Here tonight, Daisy May Cooper, struggling single mum with a dream, Rain Dogs at 10:40.